Ooh, that's loud. Is that really? Yeah, that's really. I don't know. Maybe it's just because no one's in here. Audrey's Jerry. It seems a bit loud.
Small portion of the city's residents. However, they were enthusiastic and engaged. Documentation of the public outreach effort and the staff survey is available in a separate report, and that would be business 2 tonight, this afternoon. So, having been informed by the public input and our own discussions, we submit this report. We are mindful that the city is planning for a facility for the next 50 years, and it will not be like the one that served us for the past 50. It would be presumptuous to assume that anyone can accurately predict the nature of work in the next 50 years. We are not engaged in site selection, programming, and building design. However, principles are enduring. They are fundamentally the attributes to determine the nature of something. This something is a new city hall, and we recommend that it be the following. It should be welcoming and engaging. The building should be recognizable and inviting. Interaction between the public and elected representatives should be open and visible. That would mean things such as extensive use of glass and architectural elements to invite people in, AI to generate helpful material and educate but not replace people, available space for advisory boards and civic associations, and space for ceremonies and public engagement. It should also be accessible and secure. Seems like an oxymoron, but not. The building should be centrally located in a downtown with ample parking and access to public transit. Security should be evident but not overwhelming. The downtown prominent location is preferred. Free and abundant public parking is certainly preferred. Located on public transportation routes, there should be a clear separation between the public areas and the staff areas. And open space should be integrated into the design, but not a destination. We are not building a city hall park. We don't recommend. Number 3, it should be amenable and for the public and the staff. The public should have amenities that increase their enjoyment of and interaction with City Hall. The staff should have amenities that contribute to their well-being and productive work environment. You should provide open space and extensive use of native plants. The public should feel pleasure coming to the City Hall. It should be a pleasurable experience, not a chore. You should include a wellness center for your staff, and we should make it easy for the public to participate, i.e. there should be things that they need there, perhaps some childcare and food and drink for, while they're waiting for meetings like this. It should actually also be a showcase of history, art, and civic engagement. The new City Hall should be a showcase of Fort Lauderdale's history and local artists, as well as being used as a space for civic engagement. We strongly suggest there should be a permanent exhibit for the history of Fort Lauderdale. There should be a permanent revolving artist space so we can see local artists. There should be space available for not-for-profits to hold events as well, get more people in, get more activity. There should be space for public education and student engagement. Getting the younger generation involved in City Hall is, I think we could all agree, a good thing for us to pursue. And perhaps even foster economic development, providing for some business incubator activities. Number 5, it should be cost effective. The building should be architecturally recognizable but cost effective. I think we got a lot of feedback from people about they did not want to spend $1 million bucks on a new City Hall. But recognizable and, significant, but not $1 billion bucks, okay? All avenues to reduce the cost of the building should be explored.
Recognizable in a positive way.
Yes, always. Consider, for instance, pursuing all grant opportunities, soliciting P3 partners, doing an RFP for a design build, generating income from co-work spaces and vendors, selling the current site and relocating if cost effective, consolidating operations and selling other city buildings, renovating the federal courthouse, and also renting and not making a long-term commitment. This is not an exhaustive list, but we wanted to, give you a few options that were raised during the discussion so that you might see them. And also, the principle here is let's keep our options open while we go into the site selection phase. It should be functional and efficient. The building should be future-oriented, using the latest in technology and capable of adapting to future needs. Workspaces should be flexible so that staff can rearrange them. There must be technology incorporated that will allow for the growing hybrid home work office environment we're in. It must be expandable for a growing workforce. You're talking 50 years down the line, how, today you have X number, 20 years from now you have a different number. Maybe bigger, maybe less, we don't know. But it pays to think in terms of being expandable. And also unanticipated technologies. We don't know what's going to happen 20 years from now. So that's why we said we thought it would be presumptuous for us to come here and say AI is this or AI is that. We don't know. But we have to keep our options open and keep our technologies to the maximum so that we can participate when they come along. You must protect your infrastructure, your communications infrastructure. We learned that the hard way, so that's definitely on the list. And the systems must be redundant. Again, we learned that the hard way. Lastly, we suggest that it be resilient and innovative. Smart building technology should be used to strive for net zero operations. This building should set a standard. We think, as a city, our buildings should set the standard for new developments in the city. It should obviously be designed to withstand hurricanes. The building should be LEED certified. Smart building technology should be used to save and perhaps even produce energy. AI should augment but not substitute for human interaction. Those are our sort of guiding principles. So in conclusion, and we can talk more about it, but I just want to get it all done. In conclusion, an important challenge we face is fostering stronger relationships between residents, neighbors, and local government. We believe that by following these principles, the city can meet this challenge. We imagine a new city hall as a place that residents enjoy coming to, where they engage cooperatively with each other and participate with their elected representatives for the betterment of the city. The Infrastructure Taskforce recommends that the conversation with the public continue. This was a sort of a beginning of the conversation. And I think as we get closer and people see City Hall coming down, it's on YouTube, you can watch the videos and, oh, this is serious, this is really going to happen. So I think that there will be more engagement as we continue this process and it gets closer to, even in the site selection process, that will generate a lot more community input. As the city begins the site selection process and develops the building program, additional opportunities for input from multiple stakeholders should be provided. The members of the Infrastructure Task Force are available and happy to be a further service if called upon to continue reimagining City Hall. Respectfully submitted, Marilyn Romano, Chair, on behalf of the committee.
Congratulations.
So we're happy to answer any questions, either myself or members of the committee, if you have them. And
are there any members of the committee that want to add to the report? Is there anything else that has not been covered? I know that a lot of these sentences were carefully parsed. I could tell there's a lot of conversations regarding each phrase and word, perhaps. Being a wordsmith myself sometimes in my profession, I know that each word has special meaning. So if there's anything you'd like to elucidate upon with regard to any aspect of this report, you're welcome to do it today. Otherwise, I think I'm very proud of the result. I think that a lot of it is very practical in nature and understands the dynamic of how our city has worked over these many, many years. And I think it's consistent with the expectations of what I've heard the community is looking for. Is there anyone from the committee that wants to say anything? Okay. Is there anyone from the commission that wishes to ask any questions of Marilyn or any member of the committee? Commissioner Beasley-Pittman, do you have any thoughts? It's a lot to digest, right?
I will say thank you, first of all, for the due diligence, the time that was spent to bring us this report. And this is encouraging, the information that's brought forward, how those neighbors who did come out to give their input and how you were able to come back and prepare this report to give us an opportunity to move forward. We have some type of feedback on the mics. But no questions at this time.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for coming and for encouraging all of the people in your district to come. You had stellar participation.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, Marilyn, I want to just echo that thank you, and to the entire committee. It was really, I just thought the task force, you guys did a great job with this. I found it so incredibly thorough. I also, if we hadn't, and I apologize if I didn't hear that, but I want to make sure that we also thank our own Office of Management and Budget for their work on this, Dickey Consulting, and as well, the student chapter of FAU for all of that work from the American Institute of Architects, the student chapter. So thank you as well. This was really an amazing collaborative effort. And I want to say that going through this, I just think this is an example of public outreach. I think this is an incredible process that was followed, and I really did thoroughly read and enjoy reading all of the findings. I had one question, and I want to just maybe get a little bit more about that. So talk to me a little bit about that discussion of renting versus owning, and how you saw that playing out, and why maybe that's something that we should consider going forward.
Well, there's two reasons. One is because it came up during the public outreach. It was discussed at the public outreach, and we wanted to be thoroughly inclusive and respectful of people whose ideas were put on the table. They spent their Saturday mornings with us. And we sort of talked about it. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but Oakland Park went that route. They did not build a city hall. They incorporated their city hall into a mixed-use building. So there was a current example out there that...
Are they renting that space?
I don't know if they're renting or if it's a P3. I don't know the mechanics of it.
Okay.
But as an alternative to building a freestanding city hall, they incorporated it into a mixed-use building. So it was an idea that was out there. And that was the one thing. And the second thing was this idea that you can't predict what AI is going to do in the future. You can't predict what the work environment is going to be. So there was some reasonable people who said, well, why don't we just keep renting and let's see what happens, let's see what develops. And this way we don't make a long-term commitment. And there were even some people who economically said, you know, why do you want to invest in a building? Why don't you just do what we're doing now and make the rental situation work for us and work out the numbers? We didn't work out the numbers, obviously. We did not do that. Site selection is where you work out the numbers. So, but it was a legitimate idea that was brought forward, and we thought it was respectful to include it.
Okay, and I love when you say idea, because that really reminds me of home, so thank you very much. I love all those ideas. They're very important, and I want to say thank you for that. But again, this is a tremendous blueprint, so thank you. Thank you to anyone that touched this at all. It's really very gratifying to read all of the work that went into this, and as I said, a great blueprint for us to move forward. Thank you.
And you know, if I could further go further on to that, you have on your agenda an item tonight, the consultant contract for the garage for Holiday Park, okay? And that's been a discussion for quite some time, prior to this reimagining City Hall. But one of the components of that consultant contract is to consider, review something or other, the idea of relocating TAM, putting it into the new garage in the park, and selling that property to finance the garage. Well, that happened before this happened. You might want to think and slow down and reconsider that, because that may be an item that you may want to use for the City Hall. I'm not saying yes or no, not speaking on the substantive, should we have a garage or not have a garage, but you know, concepts were raised prior to this that may need to be reconsidered. Just a suggestion.
Right, and we did have those kinds of discussions when we were talking with the county about a joint governmental center. We did discuss the possibility of sources of revenue. Could we rent out space? Actually, we would still own, but could we rent out space? Could we see that kind of a multi-use facility? We were actually letting tenants come into the building and offsetting our costs as a city. So I think all of that's on the table.
I think so. I think, you know, to be fair to the general public, the next step when you start talking now about when we get serious, so to speak, and we hire someone, however you want to do that, to start doing some of this site selection work, pros and cons, you know, this, that, and the other, that's when I think you will generate a lot more public participation. And I know the business community will be much more involved at this. We did a presentation to the DDA of the material that you will see in Business 2, and that generated a lot of ideas. And we're going to the Economic Development Advisory Board in 2 weeks, same presentation. That will generate ideas, and I'm sure they will now want to weigh in, which is why we are suggesting that the conversation needs to continue. This is not a one and done.
Again, thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, and we will sit and listen to the presentation on Business 2, and then you may actually generate questions from that, and we'll be happy to come back up and talk with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Okay.
Commissioner Sturman?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm glad you...
Yeah, we saw that you walked in.
No,
so I
I'm
don't wanna
glad that
exclude
you gave me an
But the
opportunity to
report
talk.
is basically what was in the exhibit, so I figured you heard it anyway.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait, don't go away.
No, I'm not going away. I'm sitting there.
Oh, okay.
You got questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't ask you any questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So first of all, let me say that we, meaning myself and the previous city manager, Greg, in a lot of our discussions with the federal government, we have been made aware of funding opportunities that we can employ in trying to find how we're going to pay for a new city hall. Let me give you an example. Through the infrastructure build what is it?
Build Back Better?
No, Build America board. Because we are within 1 mile of a transportation center, which consists of the bus station and Brightline, we are eligible to tap into transportation funds to build any public building, including a city hall. And that could be financing up to 100% through multiple programs. And at the federal rate, I believe, is 2%. So these are very attractive opportunities that we could look towards, and that program survives the election this November. It will continue to be available to us should we decide to go that route. But it's a very, very interesting thing. Secondly, and to the Vice Mayor's point, early designs and conversations that we had when we were working with the county was to build additional space in addition to what our space requirements would be, in order to have cash flow so that we could help pay for the building. The only thing is that we'd have to work out an analysis because there's a cost of building that extra space and how much return would we get if we decided to rent it out. I'm not sure what the demand for commercial space is at this point, but it's certainly part of the conversation. And also, I want you to be aware that there has been continuing effort to respond to some of the curiosities that this board has come up with. For example, renting as opposed to building. So we made several attempts to inquire about existing buildings. Maybe we could rent it out. 110 East Broward, for example, was an example that we had first inquired when it was up for sale 2 years ago. The problem with 110 East Broward is that the sellers failed to disclose until we realized that this was the case, that they sold the land underneath the building a number of years ago during the recession. So we did not want to buy a building with a 90-year base lease on the property. So the building went for cheap. And the people, somehow are still filling it as, they're filling it with their tenants. They still have come back to us to see if we want to rent, but that is not an option. It's a ground lease, so how can we do that?
We're at this point, we're agnostic as to what option.
Right.
We are only suggesting to you that you keep them all open, keep the balls floating.
I want to give you a little
because what happened
history.
2 years ago might be different today.
Right. So I just want to keep you apprised of some of the things we've done so far. Yet we still have continued the conversation with the folks that own 110 East Broward, mainly because they own that corner piece where the restaurants are, where the sub shop is and so forth. Okay, they own that piece, and that piece is between their tower and Stranahan Park. So we've talked with them about maybe doing something with that parcel, okay, and building. I haven't brought it to the commission yet, but we're toying with the idea of maybe working something out for that parcel, and maybe shutting down that little side street and including Stranahan Park as part of a campus for City Hall, right? So we can appreciate the Women's Club, the Stranahan Park, all part of a downtown campus that we could incorporate in City Hall. These are some of the things we've been talking about.
All very exciting things, and I believe that this next phase, in gathering all that information, bringing it up to date, that's called site selection, okay, is what the next phase is. And the committee, we're very happy and excited. If you want us to continue participating in this, we're here for you.
Yeah, well, that's the
always.
point. So these are just a couple of examples of some of the things we've been having conversations with the business community. There have been other conversations still, but I think those are next steps. And I agree with you. And this will probably take us through the election.
Yes.
Because we have the summer break and, people have personal lives. So, and I don't think this commission should be voting on things anyway at this point. We should listen to the community more, because there is still more to be learned and more to be understood. And I think that, but those are the kinds of things that we've been talking about, in addition to, relocating on the existing site. So, so there's all kinds of opportunities in our city. We have a thriving, dynamic downtown, and we're very excited to be part of that as a city government. And so let's see what we can do best for the community. Oh, by the way, let me take one property off the table, the federal courthouse. And the reason why that's off the table, we had a meeting with the General Services Administration. They're the people that own the federal property, and they make the determination as to what happens with their property. So we had a meeting a few months ago, and there was like 10 of them and a couple of us. They are so bogged down with process that by the time they're able to make a decision, we'll have long moved into a new city hall, God willing. Okay, let me give you an example. They will not even contemplate doing an appraisal on their building until that other new building is built, they've moved in, and they're all settled. They're planning a 2 to 2.5 year process going forward. So they won't even talk to anybody before 2 and 2.5 years. Then they're going to do their appraisal, but they won't tell us what the appraisal is. We have to do our own appraisal, and if it comes close to theirs, then we can make a deal. Well, how do we know if it comes close to theirs? They won't reveal the information.
No. There's complexities to every possible option going, but I would just say to you, in relation to all of these options, they need to be documented. It can't be.
Yeah, I know.
And so that the public can see it, because then they'll say, well, what about?
I understand, but I'm bringing
how this goes.
This is a public forum. We are being, watched by a lot of people, and I just want people to know the kind of work that we've been undertaking in the last couple of years, so that there isn't a lot of unnecessary conversation about possibilities that are not really possibilities. So the bottom line with the federal courthouse is we probably couldn't even begin conversations for at least 5 years. And I hope we'll have made a decision before then.
God willing.
Yes. Anyway, so I just wanted to bring all those points to everyone's attention so that we have a little bit more defined direction going forward.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That property you mentioned before the courthouse, that included that low rise for a potential, where we might have chambers? That was part of what you're talking about, too?
Which one? The one on the corner next to 110 East Broward? Yeah, we're talking about the whole thing there.
Right.
Yeah.
The tower and the lower building next to it.
Well, not the tower. The tower, everything has a ground lease, Warren. That's the problem.
Okay.
So we'd have to buy out the ground lease.
Even the one next to it, the low one.
They said that they would buy it out, and that would be part of our deal. There's more to it, and I'd rather go through.
No, we don't have to bog down it.
We're not going to solve that one today.
But there is more to it, but that's another possibility. I'm just putting it out there.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Anything else from the committee?
We'll all stay for the next item, and if you have any questions after that, we'll be available.
Okay. Susan, do you have anything you want to add? Or
Nope. Thanks
good?
again.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay. So, so business 2. Where do we go from here? Who's going to take that on?
So I'll let Yvette Matthews come on up, and she'll introduce the folks that did a lot of those sessions.
Yeah, good afternoon, Yvette Matthews, Acting Director of the Office of Management and Budget. So we have a presentation which will share with you the public feedback that we received and the employee feedback that we received. Cheryl Dickey from Dickey Consulting will be presenting on the public feedback, followed by Erica Johnson on the employee feedback.
Am I pressing the button? Okay. So,
Hi, Cheryl.
hi, my name is Cheryl Dickey with Dickey Consulting Services, and our team to work with the Office of Budget and Management, who were superb. And I just want to say that much of what is in this presentation actually was summarized very well by the task force. So it'll be a lot of redundancy. So I'm going to go through it very quickly. Thank you so much.
Take your time. We have plenty of time.
Okay. So am I clicking this way? Oh, sorry. Okay, so overview, of course, we did an overview at the beginning. Our public engagement workshops, you'll see as we deal with the additional slides, we're done in a series. And then you'll hear from the employee feedback section, and we'll also talk about what the community results were for each one of the workshops. And then the preferences that we did at the very last workshop. And then, of course, you've heard about the next steps. So we probably don't need to rehash how we got here.
Don't remind us.
And, of course, we've been discussing who participated. And thank you so much for recognizing everybody who did. Obviously, the task force, our company was just helpful in doing the public outreach, and we so appreciate that. The AIA, the student body of FIU, and their the actual AIA itself, the Fort Lauderdale chapter, was very helpful. And, of course, your own Office of Management and Budget. And, of course, we started this whole process in December. And we wanted to break it up so that if people weren't able to come in a particular month, maybe the next month. So that's why we did that, and it was agreed upon. So, of course, you know, we had December 2nd at the FAU lab, and then January 13th, we did it at the YMCA, and on February 17th, we did the amenities workshop at Holiday Park, and then, of course, the finance and procurement at the Beach Community Center on March 23rd. And April 20th, we did the next steps. And we were able to get additional people at that workshop, so we were very happy about that. Just as a recap, during the introductory workshop in December, the things that were high level were the folks wanted to look at. Of course, we presented the evolution of City Hall since its beginning, and we wanted to talk about what common features of modern city halls were, and how the city would be utilized, the new City Hall, and then the transparency, not just in terms of how you could view. Part of what came out of that was people wanted to be able to see in some more glass, see offices, see people communicating, but also the transparency of the process itself. So we talked about business collaboration space, the outdoor space, eco-friendly, and to consider the surrounding architecture with the building, and of course utilizing the internal space with flexibility, and as has been mentioned, a smart, efficient building, and others were talking about affordable housing in the surrounding area. So then when we moved on to space allocation for the actual workshop, we talked about making it convenient. The public wanted to see to fit multiple departments into the building and provide satellite services as well for office spaces outside City Hall. They also said that the city officials and staff should have dedicated space. So space for the charter offices, elected offices, and to secure administrative space. Wanted that to be more of a function of centralized space for the administrative staff. In addition, the community should have flexible space. So you heard about wanting to have that permanent history, exhibit, education, but also collaborative hubs to promote communication within the community. Also, For the People came out, a place that you wanted to go to together to be a part of service for our city. Also, to consider the future. So, of course, we talked about what's happening in downtown now, but consider the size of the employee group. We've been hearing about that, how much of an increase of employees there may be or decrease. So that had to be considered. And then wanted a hybrid workspace for employees just in case they grew. So when we then moved on to amenities in workshop 3, we started talking or hearing from the community about a campus. So they wanted a welcoming, inviting space, a large structure with an atrium. Again, that whole idea of parks, vegetation, plant someplace that people could sit while they wait on meetings. Also, they talked about a facility for pedestrians to walk up to, also to provide staff with their needs as well as innovative technology. They wanted a community resource. Again, we go into that whole issue of looking at exhibit space for artists. You heard about that earlier, collaborative space for local businesses, also to serve as a welcome center. So that was discussed. Then we moved on to hearing from them about looking at interface with the public. So again, wanting a user-friendly space, welcoming. We heard a lot about, not running into, nothing against security, but for people to be able to come into the space without being checked immediately. Then looking at easily accessible space. One of the things that came up most of all was free parking. Did not want to have to pay for parking when doing business with the city. They wanted a productive space. And then, of course, looking at a comfortable experience. So that's where we heard a lot about providing some food options for not only the employees, but even for the public to come up and enjoy perhaps a restaurant or where food was available. Other amenities were, of course, bike racks and shuttles to City Hall so people could get there from their neighborhoods, a safe and secure location, and to, again, respect the environment, and talking about the issue about making sure it's flood and resilient against any mitigations. Then at workshop 4, that was a rousing discussion because anytime you start talking about procurement and finance, it is a complex subject, but the city staff was excellent. They came out of their departments and discussed procurement and discussed finance, and was very understood by the actual community members who were there, and so they then presented what they thought were the ways that it should go. So for procurement, they said, look, we really want to see some local contractors and architects. They discussed the P3 concept, but they also understood that less design in the beginning might be helpful so that then when a contractor came in to construct, then there wasn't that confusion about something being designed that then couldn't be constructed. They wanted it to be a solicited proposal and did not want, some people didn't want the 3P, so you've got that dichotomy. And then again, we moved back into considering a progressive design and a hybrid of procurement and process so that people would have an opportunity. And then a higher development process person, a manager who would do this so that there wouldn't be that confusion. In financing, it goes back to revenue sharing. They wanted a combination of looking at grants, bonds, as well as revenue generation. And in our 5th workshop, that's where it all came together for those who did participate. And so they discussed the overall design being looking at architectural significance, still that conversation about affordable housing surrounding, and then having outdoor space. For space allocation, again, the city officials and staff working together and having that dedicated space, and the community also having flexible space. places where people would come together, customer service, just as we talked about before on amenities. They wanted to make sure that the interface with the public, create a campus, a community resource, and make the location accessible. But again, they were talking about making sure that the HOA civic associations had a place to meet, as well as your advisory boards. Again, on financing and procurement, that mix use of grants, bonds, and revenue generation came out high, as well as a hybrid procurement process. So that was the workshop, and from there, you'll now hear from your staff.
Good morning, Erica Johnson, Office of Management and Budget. So in addition to receiving feedback from the public, we really did also want to understand the needs and desires of our city employees, as they are the primary individuals that come to this facility every day. And so we took a two-prong approach. Really, we wanted to survey employees, and then we also offered an employee town hall. Through these efforts, we received 132 completed surveys, and over 50 employees came to our town hall workshop. And this really allowed us to hear from every single department in the city. Through the survey, we heard a couple of key findings. The first being that employees really enjoyed the downtown location of our city hall. It allowed for a lot of collaboration in an effective manner, and there were also common spaces the employees enjoyed taking advantage of. Most employees also felt very or adequately safe at our city hall, so that's something that we'll want to continue and build on to any future location. Employees were interested in design elements such as incorporated green spaces. Here, we've heard that throughout this morning. Natural lighting and integrated retail, so things like doctors' offices or dry cleaners that would make their day-to-day a little bit easier. Across the board, we heard more conference rooms are needed in a future facility. And employees were also interested in amenities such as a gym, a cafeteria or coffee shop, outdoor space, and then moving the centralized wellness center downtown into the city hall. When we held the employee town hall, again, we asked, what would be most important of all of your needs and desires? And what we heard was, again, security, both in terms of security features and staff presence. One idea that came out of this was to have all public-facing services on the ground floor. Modern technology and facilities are needed, again, talking about flexible conference rooms and multi-purpose spaces, as well as flexible workspace that could accommodate any future changes in the workforce, such as hybrid work environments. Outdoor space for events, mixed use, and then again, we heard some of the amenities that were desired, such as a gym, cafeteria, coffee shop, and out of this workshop, we also heard a desire for a facility for childcare or daycare for city employees. Again, moving the wellness center downtown and natural lighting were top priorities for our employees. One other thing that I just want to tack on here as we finish up this presentation is each year we have our statistically valid neighbor survey. So this year we did add a question on City Hall, and the question was, what would you find most important in a new City Hall facility? So this is a survey that goes to our public. And although they were write-in responses, our survey administrator did a little bit of analysis for us. And by and large, the top response was accessibility in terms of ease of access, centrally located and good hours, with parking and customer service rounding out the top three. And with that, I'll conclude the presentation unless there are any questions for either Cheryl or me.
All right, great. Thank you so much. We appreciate the work you put into this. It's interesting that only 2% say it shouldn't flood, but I know that was a tongue-in-cheek question. Yeah. Commissioner Beasley-Pittman, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Again, I'm really impressed with the feedback that we received and how the consultants and also our staff was able to bring this presentation together for us. I am looking forward to seeing our next steps and how we're going to execute moving forward. I know we have some timeline to do this, but this is in a good direction to know the feedback of our neighbors.
Well, the good thing is we have rental space where at least we're trying to function, in exile. But I know that's it's very difficult on employees to continue to have to interact in such, dislocated places throughout the city. So we're going to do our best to try to move this process forward. Vice Mayor, do you have any questions?
No, nothing additional. Just again, a thank you, and I echo Commissioner Beasley Pittman's words. I'm looking forward to the next steps, and I want to just keep on moving. So as you say that we can bring everyone back together and make it a lot easier for staff to work with each other and our offices as well. So again, thank you to everyone.
And Commissioner Sturman.
Yeah, there's one thing in here that I really, I really like. Removing barriers to go into City Hall, and some of the places that I've lived throughout the years, they'd have like a fee for parking, and I find that, I mean, I think the term is offensive, to have a barrier there. So I like the fact that free parking access, making it easy as they could, it's more welcoming. It's sending a sign to the community.
Thank you. So, so going forward, there are other exhibits and other presentations. Is there anybody else making any other presentations besides the ones we just saw? No, we're good? Okay. So just a couple of things. I think it would be ideal if, we had the public-facing personnel on the first floor. I'm not sure all of that can be accommodated on one floor. It depends on the footprint that we have to work with. But I think the commission gets the message that no one wants to have to deal with elevators going up and down the building. They just want to be able to walk in and have that ease of access. I think that's all. So again, moving forward, we continue the process of finding out locations as well as funding opportunities, and that's the exciting part. So, all right, well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. Susan, do you have any other words you'd like to add to this process?
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing, ULI, the Urban Lands Institute, was doing kind of a parallel process, and we'll be bringing that information back, I think, in July.
I noticed when Ms. Dickey made her presentation, that entity was not included in those entities that participated. Is the Infrastructure Task Force, Dickey Consulting, American Institute of Architects, and Office of Management and Budget. Was ULI participating in any of these? No. But they must have had people attending, because they threatened to give us their opinion.
Laura Reese, Acting Assistant City Manager. So when you all tasked the Infrastructure Task Force with this, they partnered with Dickey Consulting to do the public outreach, and separately on a parallel path, DSD partnered with this
ULI.
other organization, but
Okay.
they did attend some of the meetings. They just didn't happen to be incorporated in the team that was assembled with the ITF to do this public outreach effort.
Okay, so now we know what their role was. All right,
Correct.
very good, very good.
So, Laura, how do you see the timeline now playing out after we've just read and digested all of this, and we know that we're going to hear from ULI in July, and how do you see this playing out for the next 6, 7, 8 months?
So this was the conclusion of the public outreach effort, or the formal ITF outreach effort. So I think we are sort of looking for some direction from you. Right now we have a placeholder in our community investment plan of $5 million to either start design or to start some progress. But you don't want to do that until we know what you would like us to do. So what I think I heard from you today is you'd like to continue public outreach with Marilyn and her team, such as the presentation to the Economic Development Advisory Board and others who want to provide their input. And then from there, I think staff has to come back to you with a recommendation of a path forward, unless you had something else in mind.
Okay.
And I could just add, so after the ULI presentation, that will be in July, after the break, I would imagine that we would come back either at a conference or set up a workshop to get that kind of, to provide some options and get some direction on next steps.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Right, very good.
You can never have too many good ideas, so I'm good with that. Thank you.
Ideas?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Didn't you listen to the conversation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
And we huddled.
Pull the mic down closer to you, please.
Yes. Well, ULI comes as a surprise to us, but again, you can never have too many ideas. Time is ticking. Time is of the essence. Sooner is better than later on this. So if you all are satisfied with the outreach to date, and it will continue, there are steps that you can take now before the election. Nothing's going to happen till after the election. We all appreciate that, and that's the right thing. But this time between now and the election, you could, in fact, make the decision to bring somebody on board to start the site selection process. Yeah, man. Just start looking for somebody to do the site selection process. It's going to take you 2 months. So, we would urge you to start the actual mechanics of getting this done rather than to wait another month and then there's a break and then we'll make another. Time is of the essence. I think you would all agree.
Well,
Thank you.
Wasn't that part of your next steps going forward?
That was our suggestion for next steps going forward. And, if you get to it, let's get to it. Okay?
So you're saying that the committee would benefit if the commission had hired a consultant to work hand in hand with you in the next steps?
Oh, no, that is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we made our report, okay?
Right.
And the next step is up to you to start the mechanics of the site selection process. We are delighted to work with whoever you choose to continue. But it's your decision, and I'm sure the city manager, I'm sure the acting city manager can figure out how to bring you the next physical piece of this. Let's hire somebody. Whatever the process is of going to find the right planning person with the expertise to put together these options for you and for the next commission. Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right. Well, commission, what are your thoughts? Should we give Susan some sort of direction about maybe, I don't know if this requires an RFP, or is this something that the city manager's office can research themselves and come back to us with options? I mean, I agree with Marilyn that there's no reason to wait around. Site selection is going to take some time, depending upon the options. Do we want to do this in another discussion, another conference meeting discussion? What are your thoughts? I mean, I'd like to get this thing started sooner than later. What are your
I
thoughts?
agree. I think we need to begin the conversation about identifying site location. My question with this part of the discussion, are we saying committee or a consulting firm that's going to look?
I think
how
consulting
does this
firm,
look?
a consulting firm.
You start with the
consulting firm to then work with the committee, the infrastructure task force. I don't know whether you're committee, task force, board. Okay, but to work with them. But I think that we need someone in the fields. I mean, it could be people we already have engaged with us. But I'd like, maybe the city manager should come back to us with a recommendation, and then maybe the city commission can move forward on that, because I do think it's going to take a little time. I don't know what all the options are out there. Those in the real estate community would have more information than any one of us individually. So why don't we ask the city manager to do that? And we'll go forward.
Yeah, we'll plan on bringing that with the ULI presentations. So
okay, perfect.
We'll have something ready with a few options on that July 2nd meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I agree, Susan. We've done this on other large projects where we've had an agent or a consultant that works on our behalf and looks out for our interests. And I think that's exactly
like the Las Olas Mobility.
It's been a solicited proposal, an unsolicited proposal, just a RFP. We've done it for all different types of reasons and other different types of processes. So I do think that we can get going, and obviously final decisions will be made after the election. That's all.
Okay. All right. Anything further? Workshop concluded. Thank you very much.